Hey there, it's Jim from Trek World. I recently discovered a Star Trek secret so obscure that almost no one even knows it. The clues to this secret were on public display for over 50 years. Most people know that the filming model of the USS Enterprise from Star Trek was donated to the Smithsonian Institution back in 1974. When the Smithsonian received the Enterprise in '74, they found it to be in pretty dire condition. This photograph clearly shows us what the left side looked like, with all the wires and cables hanging down from a secondary hull and even from the nacelles. If you search for vintage photos of the left side of the Enterprise, this is one of the very ones you will first see, because it was really one of the first times that people took a deliberate photo of the unfinished side because they wanted to show the magic behind the appearance. Now, this high-resolution picture shows us close-up views of two very important pieces of information that we need to know as we begin our journey together. One, you can clearly see where the cables come out of the nacelles, complete with an electrical plug on the end. 2. You can also see that the left nacelle has the familiar red and yellow pennant decoration that we are used to seeing. Since 1974, the original 11-foot studio model has been seen by thousands, maybe even millions. Most fans already knew that the port, or left-hand side of the Enterprise, was the location where the wires and cables that ran the intricate lighting systems had been installed. Those cables emerged from holes drilled in both nacelles and within the secondary hull itself. Now, these holes would never be seen on camera. So as a result, the entire time they used the model had only ever been filmed on the right side. Over the years, that fact has been very well documented. For instance, this is a photo of the Smithsonian Conservation Team gently removing the Enterprise from her longtime perch in the basement of the gift shop. The comment you see is from the curator in charge of exhibiting the model, in which she notes that, quote, one side is the fully painted, fully decorated side of the model that always faced the camera. The other side was never fully decorated because the camera would never see it, unquote. So far, so good. Nothing new there. So while doing research for the video that we did on the Smithsonian's care and feeding of the model for the last 50 years, I took notice of something that I had seen but never grasped the implications of before. Now, before I could be sure of myself, I needed to go back and take a look at the unfinished side of the model in each of the previous restorations that had been done. When they first put it on display in '74, again in 1984, in 1991, and most recently in 2016. And there it was. In every photo that I could find, the left or port nacelle was fully decorated, which also matches the very small partial view we had in the photo showing the left side of the model when the museum first received the Enterprise, indicating that the nacelle had always been painted. But why? It made no sense to me that they would have detailed only the left nacelle and left the rest of the left-hand side completely undecorated. Even more confusing is that you can clearly see the hole that had been cut into the model in order to complete the lights installation. That's the hole that had the little electrical plug hanging out of it a few minutes ago. In a nice touch, the Smithsonian's restoration was so complete in 2016 that they even included the little plug hanging down from the left nacelle. So it was obvious to me that there was never any need to paint the nacelle because it would never have been photographed. But what if the nacelle had been painted before the lights had been installed? The very first time the model was seen in public is when it was delivered to the Howard Anderson Company by the gentleman they had retained to have the model constructed, Richard Dayton. Dayton is on the far left. The other gentlemen are actually people that he contracted out to that actually did the fabrication. Photograph is a photo much later in life for Richard where he's in front of the Enterprise while it's on display in the basement of the gift shop. And I will tell you this much, and I'm probably going to do a video on this, but the whole story of Richard Dayton and his quest to at least be recognized as the man who built the model is convoluted enough to be its own documentary. And maybe I'm going to do that.
Hey, just wanted to call and say thank you so much for such a great job you do on Trek World channel. I've been watching since you started the channel, and as someone who has seen every episode of the original series and TNG probably 30 times each, I've learned so much from your channel about the backstory of Star Trek and how it was made and the drama between the creators and the actors. I felt like I knew a lot of this stuff, but watching your channel just made me realize I literally knew nothing about my favorite series of all time. So thank you so much. Love your channel, and I hope you continue to preserve all this great information for posterity online. Thank you.
Is it possible that, contrary to everything we've ever seen or read for the past 5 decades, that the larger model had not always been naked on the left side? They had, in fact, originally been complete on both sides? Now, unfortunately, almost anyone that had actually been around when the model was first seen is no longer with us. Matt Jeffries, Herb Solow, Gene Roddenberry, Bob Justman, and of course, Richard Dayton. So with no one to really ask directly, we turn to the internet with the question: was the left side of the Star Trek USS Enterprise studio model always unpainted and unfinished? Not unexpectedly, there was no hidden gem of information to uncover, even though there were over 1 million responses. However, at one point in my endless searching, and believe me, there's days that it really does feel like they go on forever, I got the most unexpected hit when using the keywords Dayton, model, and Enterprise. It seems that the children of Richard Dayton have published a book. I put an affiliate link down in the description for this video, based on the written notes and materials that their father had left behind after his passing. Now, I've mentioned in other videos that when you're doing research, the very best sources of information are always contemporary documentation. And here was a self-published book promising to have one-of-a-kind information not available anywhere else. So I gave Amazon my money and waited for the book to arrive. Not long afterwards, the mailman delivered the 172-page self-published book. As I began reading in earnest, I hit pay dirt on page 80, where Dayton's notes discussed the changes needed to the 11-foot model in order to add lights in the secondary hull and nacelles. He said, with the changes in the lights, power was routed through the support stand on the front of the secondary hull, and the wires were run on the outside of the model because the nacelle struts were constructed of solid wood. Power cables pierced the left side of the Enterprise at several spots. Now, the model could only be filmed from the right side, and some detail has been therefore omitted. Another passage right below it says, originally my father stated, the left side was as detailed as the right when it was first delivered before it was subjected to the changes for lighting requested by Gene. Now, while we're here, there are tons and tons of Trek experts out there all around the internet who will tell you, oh, Trek World's just looking for click. These are in Richard Dayton's words. It was as finished on one side as it was the other. Richard Dayton. If you don't agree with that, who are you to disagree with Richard Dayton? Furthermore, there's a photo we're going to take a look at in a few minutes that is actually going to show you physical evidence that the left side was not completely blank from the beginning. And finally, as people like Gary Kerr and Doug Drexler have told me, they never spent 1 penny at Desilu on Star Trek unless it was 100% absolutely necessary, which means there is no chance whatsoever that the model as we see it today, with a blank secondary hull and a stenciled and painted left nacelle side, was ever done accidentally. The paint and the stenciling is there because Desilu paid to have it put there. So at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell you that all the quotes and all the photographs that you see on the internet are wrong. There were numerous people, and they literally said, I specifically spoke with Dayton, and I asked him that question, and he denied what you're saying. You didn't ask him the right question. You asked him, why is the model unfinished on one side? You didn't ask him, has it always been so? And to be perfectly honest, in our world, normally, that wouldn't matter until you have a book and photographs from his family and Star Trek professionals that prove otherwise. So Dayton had said that the model was finished on both sides when he delivered it to Howard Anderson's for the cage. And of course, as everyone knows, a whole bunch of photos were taken on that very day. 4 of the most popular are shown here on the screen. But as luck would have it, apparently not a single picture was taken of the left side of the model. So you would think that if there was any chance that the model had actually been finished on both sides, surely someone would have bothered to take a photo, right? Anytime anybody gets near the model, they simply take more photos. This is probably the most photographed ship, fictional, historical, or otherwise, that has ever existed. So maybe that wasn't really on anything at all. The word was given on June 11th, 1965, that another pilot had been ordered.
We're leaving that vast cloud of stars and planets which we call our galaxy. Behind us, Earth, Mars, Venus, even our sun are specks of dust. A question: what is out there in the black void beyond? Until now, our mission has been that of space law regulation, contact with Earth colonies, and investigation of alien life. But now, a new task. A probe out into where no man has gone before.
If you have any videos, photos, or documents that you would like to donate to us, please feel free to send them to Jim at trek-world.com or submit them via the web at submit.trek-world.com. And yet, once again, no amount of digging on the internet could bring up a single photo of the mysterious left side of the Starship Enterprise at that point in 1965. One of the people that I have been blessed to have contact with as a result of this channel is Mr. Doug Drexler. He has been a part of Star Trek for decades, and his fingerprints are all over some of our best memories as fans. The photo you see here sums it up beautifully. He designed the NX-01, among other things, and just behind him is an honest-to-God Academy Award, which he earned as a result of his work on the Warren Beatty adaptation of Dick Tracy. Doug was part of that Smithsonian restoration. So I reached out to him with my thoughts and suspicions. He actually managed to find an actual photograph showing the left side while it still had paint and detailing on the left nacelle and the left side of the secondary hull. Now, the photo is not the best, but trust me, it was beautiful to me when I saw it, because it confirmed what I had suspected. Now, I have attempted to enhance this photo very specifically to increase the clarity and the detail of the model. So obviously, you can see the detailing on the left nacelle. We expected that. But you can also see the detail and painting is still very much part of the secondary hull as well. Lastly, you can also see that the electrical wires they ran through the model, as well as the holes they had to drill into the left side of the neck and the secondary hull as a result. Amazingly, the path the wires take as they move across the secondary hull has been faithfully duplicated in the last Smithsonian restoration for the very first time. There is apparently one detail that was not present on the left side, and that is the small block that the right has under its pennant. So on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you can see the right-hand side of the ship with the block under the pennant, whereas on the lower right-hand side of the screen, you can see the left-hand side of the ship that does not. This was obviously a cost reduction measure. Every penny counted for them. So it looks like we have yet another Star Trek myth started. I'm just going to touch over the areas highlighted in blue. The other side of the 11-foot shooting model was totally naked. The other side was never fully decorated because the camera would never see it. Only one side of the model was painted. But let's make something 100% clear here. Not a single one of those statements is deliberately misleading in any way. In fact, the only time the model was ever filmed while both sides were completely finished was when they filmed the cage. And when they used the model for the single shot in the cage, they didn't show the left or port side. Now, obviously, at some point, probably in the post where no man has gone before changes that Gene wanted, the secondary hull was completely stripped of any adornment and never received detail ever again. Why they left the nacelle details, I will never know, but over 50 years later, it caused this Star Trek fan to question what he had believed for decades. So now let's get up with the fun stuff, like this right over here.